First of all, as always, a big welcome to everybody. Really nice to be talking to you here on a Thursday morning, which at least in Essex is sunny. I don't know if it is anywhere else. Welcome back to the ILC Home Webinar Series. This is actually number 15. So that is an example of how long we've been in this situation that we're in. I think we did one week we did 2, 1 week we missed out. So that's 15. It was really quite surprising to do that. But thanks again. First of all, thanks to all our corporate partners. It's GeoBear, Carpenters, CoreLogic, iCAD, Coreventa, the Innovation Group, and various. Really pleased to have your support. Hope you get as much benefit out of it as we do for having you as a corporate partners. Most of all, it's thanks to all of you in the industry who come on every week and support it and give us some terrific feedback that we're trying to cover all the issues that are there. And hopefully, as a platform, we're helping what I think has been a resurgence of faith and trust within the industry and within the supply chain from insurers all the way down. And I'm certainly committed, as I think I said before, to continue, albeit in a different way over the summer and then back into the autumn, to continue the journey to allow us to build trust and serve our customers better and make all our businesses better. And hopefully that's one of the big things that we get out of this. So next week we'll be moving from contractors on to the disaster recovery world and its interaction with us all. And I think that's a really important one because there are some very unique situations there, but there equally are here. Just a quick plug. Our building conference is scheduled to take place the 29th of September. Really, hopefully that will. And then our home conference, which is going to look exactly at how we implement what we've learned or the good stuff that we've learned throughout lockdown. That's on the 11th of November. The agenda for that's almost complete. Anybody that wants to contact me or Nick over any form of involvement, sponsorship, it's alan@iloveclaims.com, or you can contact Nick Sproul over sponsorship at nick@iloveclaims.com. In the summer, we're going to keep it live. There'll probably be 1 or 2 more live podcasts. Then we might go on to summer, less of them, but we will go on podcasts, rather than webinars and do some chats so people can listen to it as they travel around and go to work. But today, go back to saying we want to keep the content and the momentum of what we've been doing going over the summer and into the autumn. So today it's about contractor networks. I have some history there myself, and we're going to look at them all together. Really, we look at their value to the insurers, their value to the contractors, their values to the policyholders. We'll look at how they're developing. We'll look at how they can control things and how they can measure things, and in reality, how they can continue to provide us with the resource that is required and the capacity that's required. And it's very difficult. Frames was a very difficult one to predict numbers. So supply, demand, and therefore having resource available is quite a challenge to all of us. But I think we've done a good job of it, and we've proved that in the flexibility we've required over the last few weeks. So I'm very pleased to have with us today 4 people very knowledgeable on the whole subject. So I've got Donna Harris, the Supply Chain Director for Sedgwick Repair Services. We've got Lisa Dowski. Welcome back. Lee, Managing Director of Contractor Connections in Crawford & Co. Sean Murphy is the Head of Insurance at Dale Maintenance and has got a lot of experience around the insurance contractor market. And also Stephen Guy, the MD at React up in Paisley, not Glasgow, that's a previous joke. Really pleased to have you on board. All the views that are expressed by everybody are their own views, and that's exactly what we want, because the whole purpose of this is to get people talking so that we can learn, consider before we judge, and see what sort of things we can adapt and help move us all forward. So that's what we're after today. At the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see anything you want to do in terms of a question. You want to ask a question or you want to enter a chat, please feel free to do so. So I guess it's time to ask the first question. So I'm going to go to Donna first. And Donna, I guess the first thing is what value and I know there's a whole different myriad of types of contractor network, but what value do contractor networks add to insurers?
Okay, thanks, Alan. Yeah, you're right. There are a variety of different types of contractor networks. So from our perspective, I think we're in a very strong position that we have lots of different clients that we work for and different profiles of work. And that allows us not only to give the national coverage and the single point of entry that an insurer wants from a supply chain, but also have enough contractors on the network and enough volume going through that we can drive consistency of service. And when an insurer instructs a network, they know what to expect and the customer knows what to expect. There's the cost control element, obviously, always very, very critical for everybody. And that's a real added value from a network's perspective. But there's also the volume capacity in terms of managing surge, managing the quiet times, which can bring their own challenges, and the innovation that we can bring as well, development of new services and new products for clients.
Okay, that's a good start, Donna. I think there are a lot of these things that are there. Lee, is there anything you would add to that? And interestingly, what do you think insurers think they're buying from a contractor network?
Yeah, I guess, yes. I mean, I agree with a lot of the points Donna raised there. I think in terms of general value, we like to position ourselves as a performance management partner to our insurance clients. I think for us, that's what we believe they're getting. And that's certainly the feedback we get. So yeah, we very much concentrate on how can we help reduce costs, mitigate risk. As Donna mentioned, providing that consistency is really important across the country. But consistency doesn't mean that everybody gets the same service. It's really important that there's a consistent customer journey, but each customer is obviously treated differently. I think also we bring a lot of data insight. So through data analytics, through the way we capture data, we help insurers, I think, and more recently kind of underwriters make better decisions. So, and ultimately to increase satisfaction. So I think those are the elements we concentrate on, which I think is the value we bring to insurers. And that kind of really boils down to is, can we help increase customer satisfaction and can we help maintain and reduce costs? So that's what we see as our role, and we believe our insurers get that value from us.
Thanks. Sean, what value then do you think the networks supply to contractors like yourself?
Well, I think here at Day Maintenance, we concentrate predominantly on insurance in our market, on insurance repairs, reinstatement, etc. And then half of our business then, there or thereabouts, is planned and reactive maintenance in the commercial sector. So what it adds for us really is obviously a regular street work, regular workflow, a regular stream of work from many different clients. We work for insurer direct panels, and we also work for contractor network panels as well, which obviously gives us a greater scope to put ourselves across more client bases really, and it makes us not have to rely on individual jobs or become a one-trick pony, in as much as we've got to go out and sort of tender for work, or not tender, sorry. We've got to go out and get ourselves against local builders with lower overheads, etc. And because we specialise in the insurance industry, we know we can deliver the service that our panels require from us.
Guess, Stephen, it's over to you. I'll expand the question a little bit. One, what do networks offer to contractors such as yourself? I know you work for a smaller band, but a reasonably wage band of them. And what do you think they offer to policyholders?
I think they offer reassurance to policyholders, and I think, just to reiterate what Sean said, it gives contractors a regular stream of work. You build up a relationship with your network managers and the team that handle the claims. So they get to know you as a contractor, and I think it gives a valued service to insurer, to the customer, and as a contractor, it helps us having to go out and compete for work. We, as a business here, we don't take on private works. We feel we specialise in the insurance sector because it is a specialised industry. There's not, our builders are different from what likes of Sean and I do and various other contractors that are on the network. So it is completely different from your general builders. There's a lot more customer care put into it rather than, let's just go in here and demolish this house and rebuild it. There's a lot of time spent with customers.
Okay, and I guess that's probably never been more prevalent, that customer care, than the situations that we've found ourselves in the last 3 months are probably moving forward. So Donna, let me come back to you. I think there's two things. Too often I hear contractors dismissed. Would be anything that goes wrong, we give it happens. You know what builders are like. I know that's particularly unfair to many of our colleague businesses that operate in this market. How do you get across to your customers, both policyholders and insurers, that actually the people that we deal with here are quality contractors who we check out very thoroughly and monitor? How's that information getting across to both policyholders and insurers? And do you think you've been heard loudly enough?
I think there's two different aspects to that, because the conversations we would have in terms of reassuring a customer or a policyholder about the quality of the contractors on our network would be different and at different levels to the conversation we would have with an insurer. A number of our insurer clients are very, very interested in the level of due diligence we go through. We'll have regular audits, we'll share regular reviews with them, monthly operational meetings, and they're really very close to the extensive due diligence and performance management tools we have in place. And I think that relationship and collaborative approach is what gives insurers the confidence with the value that they get from us and the quality of the contractors on the network. From a customer perspective, I think customers choose to use a repair network when they are uncomfortable or unsure or uncertain that they would make the right choices for their own local contractor. And they want that confidence. And I think it's the confidence that we can give them in terms of the reassurance on the first call we have, the interaction they have with the contractors on the network. They very quickly build rapport and trust with them. And obviously the guarantee services that we provide as well. It just gives everybody that confidence that's needed.
I think that's a very valid point. Lee, moving that on a little bit for both customers and insurers, part of the issue was, and it's still the same, part of the issue prior to lockdown was the availability of resource. So that's two counts. It was a very competitive market. There was a lot of work being released. Therefore, getting a hold of trades is very difficult in a competitive world. So that meant, one, a bit of a problem or a challenge for you and your suppliers. But it also was another challenge because that meant these trades weren't available for policyholders if they were trying to do something direct. So they might not have been able to access builders even if they wanted to arrange it themselves, or there was a cash settlement. Is that situation changed over the last 3 months, or do you still suspect, given that we're going to allegedly build, that that's just something else that's going to occur and make it a little bit more difficult over the coming year?
I think there's definitely challenges. I think starting off on terms of how do we convince insurers we have the right contractors, our approach on that is to be fully transparent. So our clients see the performance data at a real granular level from each contractor. So we have almost like bespoke league tables and programs where they get to see it. That's quite a brave move, and I think very different from where networks in the past used to be. I think some of the criticism of networks in the past was that insurers lost visibility of the claim after it was instructed and definitely didn't see performance. They saw a good claim or a bad claim. And in the main, most is good, to be fair. But we've tackled that by literally kind of having an open book performance management kind of sharing practice with them. So literally we review the data at a contractor level, at a peril level, as regular as that insurer wants it. Some like to see it almost every week. Some like to see it every 6 months. Yeah, it varies on the insurer's philosophy. And I think then where Donna was saying in terms of customers that are nervous about approaching contractors, because sadly there are still a lot of poor contractors that tend to operate outside of our industry, actually, because I think we've done a lot to really drive quality. Our brands and the brands of insurance companies mean that they do trust who's been appointed. And I think we do lots to kind of talk to the insurers about the type of contracts they'll be having. I think in terms of kind of availability, at a local level, good builders are hard to find. Where I live, if I wanted to get my roof fixed, I'd have to wait 6 months. In some cases, when you phone some of these companies, they say, if you want it fixed before 6 months, don't leave a message, basically, because that's the kind of availability and capacity they have. I think what we bring to the network as network providers and as the contractors, we're working to some pretty tight SLAs where customers get that regular performance, get their homes back to normal and get them restored quickly. We help life cycles get reduced for insurers. So that has a massive impact. So I think we bring that capacity. And then in terms of those contractors that don't want to kind of work to those standards, because whilst workmanship standards could be similar, those customer standards, I think as Stephen mentioned, are right, but are harder in this industry, and rightly so. So I think actually this industry is doing a lot to really set and improve builders generally across the country. So those that work in the insurance industry generally improve their businesses outside of it from a customer service perspective. But equally, I think contractors that work outside of it bring in lots of different ways of working as well, which is why we like to encourage, we have a very kind of loyal and collaborative network, but we do bring in fresh contractors and we do help them to understand what it's like to work in the insurance industry. So I think at a local level, demand is still difficult in some areas, but I think through the network and through the capacity we can provide by having a live and an active network means that we can fulfill the needs of our clients, basically.
It is, thanks, and I think that's a very thorough run through of what is required in the network. But turning to you, Sean, I think there are two issues to pick up from there. One is, if we really want to be competitive, we've probably got to look at cost, but I'll come back to that one a little bit later. But the first one is, from the variance of people you work with, and what's your view? Lee mentioned very good there about being able to see performance without prejudicing yourself. What sort of statistics, or how good are networks, not necessarily these, at picking the right things to measure and measuring them accurately? Because in the past, and I've run one before, so I can be accused of being guilty. If you can hear people shouting, that's fine. You measure certain things. If they're tough, then the measures drive sometimes the wrong behaviour. The perfect example of this is, okay, right, you've got to contact, I recall in the past, having to contact the customer for the first time within 30 minutes. In these days, there was no relaxation if there was an event and all of a sudden we had 100 times more claims than we used to have. So people would make contact, people would find ways around it. So are we still measuring the right things, or have we got a bit of a journey still to do to make sure that we measure and prove what's happening properly?
I don't think performance management across networks, Alan, is a one-size-fits-all scenario. There seems to be a common theme amongst all of our clients that obviously they all need to manage us, because, as Lee alluded to, their clients need to have confidence that their networks are managed and they can demonstrate the performance of their networks. But there are differences. You touched on the SLAs. For me personally, we pride ourselves on the entire end-to-end customer journey. So if that customer is very happy based on feedback that we receive, handwritten letters, emails, cards that we get many of, if that customer is very happy, we may have failed in the eyes of the client because we didn't get a surveyor out there within 2 days, or we didn't actually start the work within 10 days. So in the overall scope of things, it doesn't look very good for us. But we know we provided an exemplary service to that customer who is going to reinsure with that particular insurer because of the full end-to-end customer journey we've given. So I do think that sometimes we are measured on very tight SLAs when sometimes they don't really add a lot of value, if I'm being honest. Okay,
fine. Stephen, from your angle, do you feel you're judged? Well, sorry, you obviously are judging the right thing in a number of cases, but sometimes when you're judged in the wrong things and given a hard time, do you feel that's a motivation? And I'm not saying you do it. Is that a motivation to find a way around it, or to concentrate on the wrong things, which is only going to affect your profitability at the end of the day?
I think all of us, contractors, networks, insurers, have always got to look at process, look at systems, and look at ways of improving how we monitor SLAs, KPIs. And technology in this day and age is now playing a big part. You know, Amazon have set the benchmark where you must, you know, if you don't get a delivery the next day, you're actually disappointed now. You know, so these are the kind of things that are driving the world, not just the insurance industry. So I think it's always a good thing to set standards, look at processes, adjust processes, and I think all good networks and all good insurers are realistic. Yes, it's in black and white, but they know that you're a good contractor. Even if you've not contacted the customer within 1 hour, there may be reasons behind that. Customer's not available, or like your surveyor's not been out within 2 days because the customer doesn't want you out within 2 days. So there is so many different requirements from the customers these days to what happens within the contractor's office. And I think technology now is starting to, contractors are taking up more and more technology. You text the customers more, customers are more, prefer that route sometimes than a phone call. A lot of people don't want phone calls anymore, so it gives you that ability to do that and measure yourself. So I think it is important. I think it's good to know where you stand in a league table also. So yeah, it's important to always keep driving these processes and SLAs to improve the system and the services that we offer.
To be fair, a lot of that stuff has moved forward, maybe not as fast as some people would like. And if you're working that close to it, of course, you don't always see it. But certainly from a distance, I can see at least an allowance for variation against performance, which might explain good service. But Donna, it isn't always that simple as you making the judgments at say, Sedgwick's Repair or at Contractor Connections, because you've got clients. So you've got loss adjuster clients, which are often your parent company, and you've got insurers. So how much does what they're looking to judge you on drive the sort of information you'd be looking to performance management, your network contractors?
It does have a big impact. I would say the biggest impact is probably the amount of data that we need to collect, and that we need contractors to feed into the systems and keep on top of, obviously, and make sure it's accurate, because all of our clients want to look at things slightly differently, and we need to have that flexibility and that collaborative approach, really, that we pull together what insurers need from us, what we need to manage the network, and actually, just as importantly, what contractors need from us, because we need to remember that it's the contractors that are out in front of the customers, and we all need to work to enable the contractors to be able to do their job for the customer. So there's a huge amount of data that we collect together. As Lee mentioned, it's the analysis of it that's really, really important. We do measure contact times, visit times, start times, all of those things that are measured right across every network. And then we have to pull that data out and we look at it in an awful lot of detail to understand what behaviours are these things creating, and is it in line with what the customer wants? Because fundamentally, that's what we all want, is to make sure the customer journey is right. And there's no point having a start date of 10 days' time if actually the customer needs that job doing tomorrow, or they don't want it doing for a month because it doesn't fit in with their whatever's going on in their family environment. So it's really, really important that we measure customer satisfaction, and behind all of those things, the cost controls, obviously, and the time taken needs to be a really big part of that as well.
I think that's fair, and of course, by the very nature, networks sit in the middle between the two, trying to cushion both sides. But to go back to something you said earlier, we talked a little bit about the competitivity, and I'll come back to the cost of running a network a little bit later. But one of the things to make sure, surely, that the insurance industry can gain the capacity when it's required in a competitive market is to look a little bit more realistic as an industry at its ability to set rates in a way that would make them competitive. Because what we said earlier, quite rightly, and all of you have agreed, is this isn't about finding a tradesman and throwing them into something, like a new build or anything. This is about finding a tradesman who you can train, is good, can go into people's domestic situation, which at the moment can be very stressful, behave in the right way, tidy up in the right way. It's a very different thing, yet it still seems that a lot of the rates that we're putting out, and again, you know, both networks are in the middle of this because they've got people to satisfy above them in the chain. Is it really realistic that we can begin to look at a more collaborative approach to making sure that the margin is there for everybody? Otherwise, we're not going to have the capacity that we may require in an event.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so for me personally, I think that's improved over the last few years. I think, and don't get me wrong, there are still some rate sets that are driven either by a network or by a client that make it difficult for contractors. But ultimately, that's a false economy for me, because it's, you know, I was using the analogy of the menu versus your bill. So you think you're getting a certain price, but ultimately, you know, the contractors will need a certain value for that job to be fulfilled. So the bill ends up being a different price to what you think you're buying on the menu. So I think from our perspective, it's important the rates need to be fair and market tested. So that's number one, and really everybody should kind of work into that. It should be really either independently set or at least independently benchmarked, I think is the kind of way forward there. And then I think the onus is on the contractors, you know, and the networks to be as efficient as possible. So people can moan about rates, but actually, do they really look at their own organisation then? And are they actually being as lean as possible? And are they kind of getting these claims through as quickly as possible? So I think the key is to have the rates need to be right, and I'd much rather have rate sets that are that are independently benchmarked, that say, yeah, we feel these rates are right. The contractors can make the right profit margins on these jobs, but then the onus is on the contractors to really make sure their operations are efficient to deliver that. I think trying to squeeze off 5%, 10%, £2 down on a rate is quite. I don't know. I think I'm seeing less and less of that in the industry now, because actually it leads to a higher cost anyway, because you spend more time trying to justify costs and looking at them and contractors, perhaps the quantum of the claim and the scope of the claim becoming larger than actually having the right price to start off with and just concentrating on the customer. I think, we work to a number of different rate sets, and it's often a piece we do. We compare by peril, by rate set, by contractor, the output to those claims, and often the cheaper rate sets can lead to higher claim costs, because contractors this isn't just saying to the contractor, they can then look to build that cost up, which then adds more to the cost and then more to the friction in the claim journey. So I think they need to be set right. Contractors should get the fair price, and the rest should be easier then. I think in some parts of the country, the rates, it's difficult to get contractors in. They are working in local areas that can be quite buoyant. You know, you look at London, typically I think contractors can earn 30, 40% more doing non-insurance work. But that's a choice they take, because obviously all the benefits you get from the insurance work, which obviously Steve and Sean were alluding to earlier, is outweighed to potentially those one-off larger jobs that the contractors may take. So that becomes business decisions then, really. So, but I think, for me personally, I think the rates for contractors have got better in the main. So it'd be interesting to see what Steve and Sean think. But I'm not saying there aren't still some that are still lowballing the rates, but I think it's a false economy, basically.
That's fine. Sean, I'll come back to you first of all on that one. And part of the problem is, one is there's the competitivity of rates, but there's also often two other factors that can go along with that. And the two other factors to that are the amount of administration time that is involved in that. So it becomes harder to be lean with some of the processes. And the second thing would obviously be, with certain claims, the cash flow and the time to payment. So you give me a view on rates, process administration, and cash flow, really, please.
I think if we go back to what we were talking about earlier on, where, you know, is insurance work right for every contractor out in the UK? No, absolutely it's not. I think processes and admin go hand in hand with insurance repairs. You know, you don't get into the insurance industry and expect not to have lots of admin to do. You know, they go, as far as I'm concerned, they go hand in hand and are as important as each other. So in terms of rates, you know, we see different schedules of rates sort of, you know, on a regular basis across all of our clients. For me, it's not always about schedule of rates either. It's about the person who's approving that job and their interpretation and philosophy of how that schedule of rate should be sort of put together. So the line item is the line item. Everybody knows that. You know, you could work with 2 different claims handlers at an insurer or 2 different loss adjusters for the same insurer or network, whereas one will allow you to put 2 specific line items in, for argument's sake, whereas another one won't. And then that gets a bit, muddies the waters a little bit then, because it obviously has an adverse effect on the outcome of that claim cost. But I do agree with Lee, schedule of rates have dramatically improved across the board, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years. And I think obviously COVID and the challenges that we've had with COVID are going to have to force changes on insurers and networks, which some have adapted to and some have already implemented, in all fairness, in terms of additional PPE, little things that we've discussed on many occasions on this forum, looking at merchants, the availability of materials, etc. So I think the technology now is allowing insurers and networks to amend their schedule of rates very reactively, as opposed to back in the day when the schedule was just put together on an Excel spreadsheet that somebody had knocked up, and then that would stay there then until somebody else came into the business and thought rates were too high, so they'd knock them down a bit. It would be the only changes you'd see. But I think now technology has allowed insurers and networks to be far more reactive with their pricing strategies.
Okay, I think that's excellent, and that's part of the improvement we're seeing. Nonetheless, one of the problems is the rates are a measurement for people to prove that they've got controls in place. And we've heard before from insurance companies, it's very difficult to provide up-the-way information to say, look, we're looking after the cost of claims in something more realistic, because it's very difficult to compare 1 year's claims, even in one peril to another, because the circumstances and the areas are all different. So therefore, if I'm trying to prove up the ladder that I'm doing something, and I think this was explained by I think 2 insurers at last year's conference, I can say, look, I've got nice rates that are good here, and we're keeping a lid on them. Stephen, what variance do you see in rates? So, Elise said, and John supported, the rates are improving. But for the various customers, again, without naming them, are the rates close, or are you seeing different structures, which Sean alluded to, and different rates within different customers?
I think each insurer has a different expectation, and I think it's such a difficult thing to measure as well. Networks have a tough journey trying to get these insurers to award them the work. So then it sometimes, from a personal point of view, it feels like it's a race to the bottom for the rates to try and attract the insurer to say, right, we will look after the purse strings. And insurers are driven by cost. I mean, there's no doubt about that. A job, and I think if we were all to be truthfully honest, a job costs what it costs. Yes, we can put line items in. Yes, we can put all these measures in place, but a job costs what it costs. The reason that we and Sean works with Donna and Lee is because we're a trusted contractor. You know that you're going to get a good job. Yes, sometimes you don't make as much money in that job. You make a bit more in that job. The line item's the same. So it's so varied across the industry, I feel, from certain insurers. The line items are starting to get closer, but you'll have different insurers allowing you to put in minimum job value, a minimum trade value, so other insurers just will not entertain it. You'll have other clients that will allow you to put room protection in, other ones will say that's built into the codes. So there's so many differences that we could analyse and do, and I think it's down to networks, contractors to just manage the costs as best we can. As I say, it's a good industry to be in. It's not for every builder, but the contractors that are involved in it choose to be in it because it's a decent industry, so we've got to just improve it.
I think you can answer cash flow that as well. Donna, a quick one on to you. I hear a lot of, I think there's a big misunderstanding on the value and the cost it takes to run a network properly, to thoroughly vet and monitor and keep people going. And I hear in the industry. I have heard since I ran with myself a lot of throwaway comments, so everybody's just trying to make more money out of it. Can you just explain the real value that you give for the money that you take for running a network? Because I know several people who run networks. You know, this is not easy stuff. This is tough stuff to make sure people are up and ready and continue to be in the right shape.
It is. It's a difficult commodity to be in. There's no doubt about that. And there is an expense to running a network. Lots of it, I think, is quite rightly behind the scenes. And I think that's some of the challenge is the work that we do with things like our risk and compliance teams, the due diligence work that we do, the work that we do in terms of, you know, what we've just discussed about rates and making sure that they're fair and appropriate to enable everybody to do the right job and provide the right service to the customer. All of that sits behind the scenes. The performance management that's done, development of the IT platforms and the digital strategy, and massive amounts of work, as we need to in this particular industry, on cash flow. All of those things sit right behind the scenes, and to get them right and to deliver what we need to, it does need people, and there is a cost that's attached to that. I think probably all networks have a slightly different structure and a different approach to how they do things, quite rightly so. And any one of us, I'm sure, is quite comfortable that we can sit down with anybody that wants to look at more detail about where does our management charge go, why is it at the level it's at, and where's the value for that particular stakeholder with their interest. We can sit down and we can talk that through with confidence and credibility, I would say. There is very definitely a cost that comes with managing a network properly.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that, Lee, that cost, we know that cost exists. It either exists where you have to demonstrate it, or it exists even if it's an internal run insurer network. The cost of managing it is great. How do you think the increased use of technology can impact that cost and reduce it, but still maintain the high standards that you set to both examine and monitor your contractor base?
Yeah, I think obviously technology is definitely helping in terms of networks and contractors become more efficient. So for certain, there are certain tasks that used to need to have human intervention or interaction, which now can be automated. So that definitely can help kind of keep, we pride ourselves on a kind of low operating cost model, kind of low touch point model really, to try and make sure that the right costs are being distributed and paid for. So technology is definitely helping, but equally there's big investments being made in technology. So you need to invest in that technology as well to kind of be able to gain those efficiencies. And I think some of what the networks have done over the years, and there's been good and bad achievements by networks, I think, over the last 20 years they've kind of existed. They do help kind of to disrupt the service as well. So at various times they have really challenged contractors or insurers to try and do things differently as well. And equally contractors have challenged, and yes, I think the collaboration is probably at an all-time high. It's still, for me, way short of where it should be. But I think us disrupting ourselves through technology, that's an investment we're all making at the moment that I think will lead to kind of medium to longer term cost savings for certain. But really, I think there's still some way to go. Steve mentions that kind of Amazon experience. Lots of customers do want that. And businesses need to become more agile to deliver that. Some, not all do, but I think that investment is happening more and more, and rightly so. And I think really I'm quite excited about what the next 5 years will look like, because I think actually we'll have this call in 5 years' time. I think actually the service will be very different to where it is today. I think it's really going to rapidly change because those customer expectations are there now. And I think actually through this recent kind of lockdown, more and more technology has been embraced and forced into play. So I think it will make businesses more efficient for certain. But actually, it's like anything, as you invest and start, the customer journeys arguably can become more complicated. We need to continue to challenge and invest in those areas as well.
Actually, hey, Sean, then from your angle, often it's easier for suppliers to improve the process with technology because it's a smaller business, it's more flexible, they can do stuff. Other things you think that you can use in technology that, if were enabled by your customers, would make the whole process more efficient from both a customer journey, as Lee said, and a financial perspective?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, in all fairness, COVID have probably driven some of those changes, you know, so it's, we've had to adapt to it through necessity, really. So I think moving forward in the new normal, going out and visiting claims or going out and sending a surveyor out to low value claims as an automatic must do may well become a thing of the past. With technology available now and customers being able to do video conference calls from site, take measurements from the property, you know, it allows us then to build a relatively accurate schedule, which allows us to make a start on our job. And for some of our clients where we've got a big DA or a reasonable delegated authority on, you know, getting that schedule probably 90% accurate without doing a survey is going to be a massive benefit to us as a business and to us as an industry, I believe. And we're actually finding that that's what customers prefer now. So we're not just ringing them up and saying, can we do a video survey with you? We're actually booking an appointment for that video survey, as if we would actually go into their property. So it gives them time to tidy the bedroom, get the clothes off the running machine, and you know, so show us around and take the measurements, etc. But I think technology is obviously changing to a part where it's making us become more efficient.
Stephen, and still in the same process, one of the other things I hear, I think grossly unfairly, that's a personal opinion I'm usually not putting out on, because it's about how you manage things, is that when an event happens and you have to seek additional capacity, it's sometimes suppliers have to go out and find some, you know, subcontractors who presumably are vetted, etc. When you subcontract, I know yours isn't particularly a subcontract model, but when you subcontract, is it any less likely to be a quality job, or is it really the same about how you set up and manage the job? Is that more important than whether it's insourced or outsourced?
I think with a contractor that's been in the industry so long, you kind of know what to expect. You know, there's not too many variances within the small domestic households. You go to the larger houses that's ornate cornicing, so locally you'll know the good supplier to get you those products and give you those services. So I think you don't get any less value. If anything, you probably get a better service because you've used that particular company more than once, so you may get a little bit more of a discount, which again means we're looking after the insurance company's money. So there's all these benefits with, you know, having your own small network of suppliers, I suppose, in a way, and you certainly don't get any less service. If anything, you probably get a better service and you probably get it a little bit cheaper because you give them a bit of work now and again. So that's how I would look at it.
That's an interesting aspect. There are a lot of paradigms within the industry that I think need challenged. Last word down to Donna. Donna, in a world where we see insurers insourcing and outsourcing and changing, some of them stick to it longer, what do you think the future is for contractor networks run either independently or through larger organisations like yourself?
I think the future is really very, very bright for contractor networks. There will always be changes in strategy where some insurers will decide they want to insource a network, others will move to an outsource, others will have a combination of both models, depending on what's right for their particular strategy. But as long as customers need repairs to their homes and their businesses, and as long as insurers want the consistency of service, the quality of the contractors, the surge capabilities, the networks are always going to have a strong future. We just need to be really sure that we adapt to the market needs, that we're flexible and we're responsive to what insurers and very much customers want from us. But it's a very bright future out there for us, I think.
I think so, and I have to finish it for thanking everybody of saying that I think over the years, and especially in times of emergency and hikes and claims and storms, I think they've provided an excellent service. I just think that for some reason, the contractor network industry has been unable to really promote itself as well for the work that it does, that it has. And to some extent, they're contractors in the same boat. And I think what we're beginning to hear now is the networks are beginning to really understand and appreciate the contractors more. And let's hope that all our customers can appreciate the work that's done, because it's not easy and we have to provide repairs. And, trying to predict volumes is just basically not possible. So even when more data comes out and we're able to use it, it may help target, etc. But I think it's a good job. So I'd like to say thank you, Donna, Lee, Sean, Stephen. Thanks for your input yet again. Really enjoyed it. It's given lots of stuff for us to talk about as we go forward. Mostly thanks to everybody for listening. Really appreciate you joining us again. It is your industry. It's your subjects that we can cover. And as we keep the momentum going into the summer, we're going to look at the disaster recovery market next week heavily. And then get into the summer, we'll tail off a little bit and go into more recordings as we deal with some speciality and issues. But we will keep the momentum going. I think it's important to build on the culture and atmosphere that has occurred over this unfortunate epidemic and basically keep it going so that we can improve later from what we really are picking up now. Again, 2 conferences to remind you of: the building conference, 29th of September, the home conference, 11th of November. Give myself or Nick Swell a call over sponsorship for that. As I've said, next week we're back on to disaster recovery. I hope everyone has a really, really good week. As I always say to everybody, remember one thing: COVID-19 is still with us. It's still dangerous, so please look after yourselves, your businesses, your colleagues and your families. I look forward to speaking to you all again next week. Thank you again to the panellists.